Probably the biggest problem that I hear when orchestras are playing fiddling around is with intonation. So definitely work on the finger patterns before you play. Make sure that the finger patterns can be played consistently in tune. You know, major or 2-3 pattern on the G string. Make sure everybody can play that in tune with fourth finger for violins and violas. That's important. Make sure that they can play the major or 2-3 pattern on the D string. That's important too. And the minor or 1-2 pattern on the A string. Fortunately, we don't need to play on the E string for basses or for first violins or for second violins. And we don't need to play on the C string for second violins or violas. So we just got to learn those 3 strings and be able to apply it here. But yeah, a lot of times with these E's and B's, you know, this open fifth here is not really sounding like a perfect fifth. So make sure that we get our first finger patterns, get a lot of these parallelisms here coming into A, and it sounds really awkward if the pitches aren't lining up. The other common problem that we have here is with messy bowings, and just making sure that we're making good bowing choices. We're gonna probably have to change some of these bowings to make sure that we're not bowing backwards. You can bow it as it comes. Okay, that you could absolutely do that. You could also conduct Stravinsky's La Soie in 4, but just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay, you can make it easier by doing other things. And something that I forgot to mention in the previous video is here at rehearsal E. In the second violin viola part, we have some asymmetry created because we have these measures with there's 3 bows per measure that happen 3 times instead of just 2. And so we're going to have to do something different so that here we're not bowing backwards. Or we could potentially just bow it as it comes and then catch up here in this measure so that, you know, we can finish out. But that's a few measures where we're just bowing completely backwards. So we might want to add a slur here or add a double up bow here or something to get us back to down bow before we get back to our material that we're used to here. Now when we start this material here at rehearsal 5 after B, which they should already know, they clearly start down bow. And if you're bowing it as it comes, they're going to clearly start up bow here. So we got to fix these bowings to get our students comfortable, and we got to make some bowing decisions, and we got to make it before we pass out the music, not after, in the interest of time and having efficient rehearsals. And if it doesn't work, we can always change it, but we should have a plan going in. Most of fiddling around is Forte or Mezzo Forte. We've got Forte here in the introductory theme. You know, it tapers back down, but then we have Forte again. It tapers back down. Usually dynamics are not a problem in this piece. Usually the problem is that they're not generating tone, okay? Because the way it's orchestrated, you know, we're making a crescendo here, but we're adding sections in, and so even if they're playing with the same dynamic the whole piece, you know, like we've got a decrescendo here, but they're playing whole notes on the upper strings, and so that's naturally going to decay for most younger players anyway, and then they drop out in this measure, and that's going to sound softer, and then everybody comes back in, so it's going to sound Forte, right? So the dynamics themselves aren't usually the issue, it's the tone that's associated with it, and a lot of times our students are not gripping the string, and they're not playing into the string. The bows are just kind of sliding, and so the tone doesn't sound strong, you know. And again, like Forte doesn't mean loud, it means strong, and there's a difference, you know, and so we have to be able to play with a strong tone. And so we got to be in a good bowing lane, we got to grip the string, and we can't let the bow slide. The bow's got to stay put in the bowing lane. There's some minor dynamic variances here. The first violins, you know, wherever they come in with this part of the final statement of the canon, they come in a dynamic level louder. And what that does is it just gets everybody up to Forte. And then we decrescendo back down. Again, we have it orchestral decrescendo too, with sections dropping out. Mezzo piano, mezzo forte, mezzo forte, again, piano, like it's just going to naturally sound louder and crescendoing because of the orchestration, or forte at the end. All right, we have a lot of eighth note patterns, and well, even some quarter note patterns too. Like if we look at the very beginning of the canon, or the round, in fact, like at rehearsal B, We start on the D string, go down to the G string, back to the D string, up to the A string. So we're on 3 different strings in one measure. And so we got to work on our string crossing. So what I like to do is with the left hand, I like to practice those elbow swings. I like to grab the lowest string with all instruments with the pinky and strum all 4 strings and swing the elbow as we're doing this. Cellos and basses can do the same thing, and they can practice their shoulder rotation here. Violins, violas practice that internal shoulder rotation versus external shoulder rotation. Both are very important. Now, for the right hand, we can practice teeter-totters. We can just set the bow on the strings, and we can practice doing teeter-totters. I have a video in season 1 about how to do string crossing, and you can check out some warm-up exercises that you can use with your orchestra if they're having trouble with string crossings, and I hope you find them helpful. So once you practice your string crossing, okay, well then let's go to rehearsal B and see if we can apply it. Because sometimes you do all these exercises, you work on the technique, you do all the warm-ups, and then all of a sudden you get to B and all of that goes right out the window. So you got to make sure that they can apply their technique to their concert music. And in season 1, there's sections on accountability so that students are held accountable to those techniques and hold them accountable in those exercises, but also hold them accountable here at rehearsal B. With a lot of this music, they can take it home and they can practice it, and they can use pretty poor technique, to be honest. And it still kind of sounds like fiddling around. It sounds kind of close. That you can hear it, and it's like, oh, that it sounds kind of like it, but it doesn't sound great. And to sound great, we have to use great technique. And so providing that accountability so that they have to practice it the right way is very important. Another problem that I hear fairly often is during the canon or the round, it starts to phase. Some sections pull apart, some sections go too fast, and some sections go too slow. And it's almost always because everybody's in a different part of the bow. If we're having tempo issues, if we're having phasing issues, like one section's slightly ahead of another one section's going slightly faster than another one, we got to make sure that we play towards the middle of the bow. That's going to be the sweet spot so that everybody can kind of play this at the same tempo and with the same style. So I definitely encourage you to insist that your students play in the middle of the bow, not in the lower half of the bow for low strings, not in the upper half of the bow for the upper strings, middle of the bow. Towards the balance point. You might want to play towards the balance point if these half notes aren't working out for you, but definitely not in the upper half, definitely not the frog. Another problem that I hear is that from E to F, that section is under-rehearsed. We're breaking from the canon and we're getting back to our closing area. We've got our orchestral cascade like we had at the beginning and then our introductory theme again, but that tends to be the messiest part of the piece. So make sure that you spend adequate rehearsal time there. You might want to start at E when you rehearse each day. Work on E, work on E, work on E. Okay, great. Now let's go back to rehearsal B. Let's work on the fugue. Okay, now let's go back to the beginning. But if we always start at the beginning and then we work on that stuff, the introductory theme and the cascade, and then we get into the canon, and then that stuff is like, we're working on places there. Sometimes we don't even get to E, and that's where the biggest problems are because that's where we start to have unique material. So we're going to want to work on E to F the most, and when you organize your rehearsal, you might want to start there just to hold yourself accountable to make sure that you're going over this material to where it sounds just as good as everything else. Well, that's what I've got for common problems here in Fiddling Around. It's a great piece of music. You can put it together quickly. It's got a lot of history behind it, which is why I chose it to end season 2. And if you have any problems, you have some spots that just aren't working out. Maybe you've got questions about some of the Bowings, and it's like, I tried that slur there and it still doesn't work. What else can I do? Drop a comment in the comment section below. And if you've got an idea about, how to make this piece sound better, make Fiddling Around sound better, we'd love to hear from you too. So please add that in the comment section as well. And we'd love to have a lot of people participate. So that's what I got for Fiddling Around. I'm going to take a bit of a hiatus over the summer. I think it's important for teachers, especially orchestra teachers, to recharge over the summer. I think that's very important. I think it's a good idea. If we think about what we do in May, how many things we've got going on, concerts and all this stuff, and you go home. If you've got kids, you might want to make sure they still remember your name, and spend time with them, reconnect with your families, reconnect with your friends, recharge and get ready for the next year, so that you have a wonderful summer. And hope you all have a wonderful summer and do something great and recharge, so that you don't have to deal with burnout and all these other issues. Enjoy yourself, and we'll see you in August.